Hello, and thanks for joining the January 2026 7A Connect call. Plan to cover a lot of material with you today, so the housekeeping will be brief. We are going to record this event and put it on the Training on Demand site in the next couple of days. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce the Associate Administrator of the Office of Capital Access, Thomas Kimsey. Administrator Kimsey.
Thanks, Ross. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. It's great to have everybody on the line today. I hope everyone had a wonderful Christmas and a great New Year as well. So it's good to be back at it here in DC. A lot of exciting things going on. One of the things I did want to highlight is we released our 2025 annual report today, highlighting successes, the one-year successes under leadership of President Trump and Administrator Loeffler. So take a look at that. Certainly proud of those first year successes, certainly highlighting the historic amount of capital we delivered, over $45 billion for 85,000 loans. So thank you to the lenders for making that success. We couldn't do that without your help as well. Also, just some of the other highlights from that report is, we eliminated about $300 million in annual spending. We relaunched our Made in America initiative in our online portal. Eliminating fraud was obviously a big thing from day one for Administrator Loeffler. So we implemented our birth date and citizenship verification. In addition, we cut about $100 billion in red tape from regulations. So, regulations choke small businesses. So we're super proud of that. And then certainly putting veterans in rural America first as well. But here we are in FY26. as I say, we got a lot of good things going. We're excited about what we've gotten done, but where we're going in the new year. And certainly, you're going to hear us talk a lot about our priorities for this year. As I mentioned, manufacturing being the first strategic priority, along with food supply chain and critical minerals. And I've been on the road for the past few weeks. I've been to Pennsylvania, Kentucky, West Virginia, doing some promoting the food supply chain, specifically meeting with small meat processors. So you're going to hear us talk a lot about this in the new year. We just encourage you to lean into these industries. If you have questions, let us know. Dan and his team can help answer any of those. But these are very important priorities, President Trump and Administrator Loeffler, and we would love to see success stories as you move forward with potential deals, or if you need help structuring those. As far as the Mark loan program that we launched as well, we've seen great success with that program. So if you have questions about that, please let Dan know. He'll be happy to assist on that. We're real excited about that, how we can provide working capital for our manufacturers as with our initiative there. I know many of you are, as we released Friday, the sunsetting of the SBSS scoring. As I heard from many lenders, they weren't big fans of that. And there was a lot of abuse of it, just a lot of the pull-through rate wasn't the best on that. So, I know we'll get into that more today, and I know you have questions on that, but this is only going to help you and help our small businesses as we move forward with that. But a lot of other good things going on that we'll be able to announce later. I know you've heard me talk a lot about technology. I was just watching a demo before I got on here on the technology piece, the lender experience. I couldn't be more excited about that, of how that's going to help you have a better experience, but help us to deploy more capital to small businesses. And we hope to, in April, rolling out a demo on that. So I think, as I say, you're going to be very, surprised to see what we've done. I know we're very excited here to share that, and just what it's going to do for the lender experience moving forward. It's going to be a game changer here for the agency. But moving forward, I hope to see many of you as we get back out. Obviously, we missed some of the conferences during the shutdown, NAGL and NADCO, but hope to see you on the road in person soon. If you're at the NAGL event, member meetup in a couple of weeks in San Diego, we'll be there. And also the Southeastern Small Business Conference in Savannah, the NADCO here in DC, and obviously the spring conference for NAGL, and then the MAL conferences. So several opportunity to visit with us here at the SBA, but also, happy to meet if you want to come in here to headquarters. I think that's what you'll find about us. We're very accessible. We want to help how we can. But with that, look forward to the rest of the discussion. And I'm going to turn it over to Dan. I also just want to thank Dan and Diana and the whole team here at the SBA, their support of me and what I do. I couldn't do without their help, but also to you, the lenders. We couldn't do what we do. So thank you, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you, Thomas. So, all right. Well, with that, I wanted to go over a little bit of the agenda before turning it over to Marty Andrews as he gets into the SOP 57 updates. As Thomas mentioned, we did publish the notice sunsetting the SPSS score. So that's going to be the main topic I cover at the end. But I also want to recap some of the recent notices that were published toward the end of fiscal 25, including the citizenship notice. So I'll recap some of that as we get started. We will have some time for questions. So if you have questions, feel free to submit them. We have the entire 7A policy division here on the line, so they'll be answering your calls, and we're going to address some of them toward the end of the call. But with that, I wanted to turn it over to Marty Andrews as he gets into SOP 5057.
Thanks, Dan. I'm going to go over today some high-level updates that were included in SOP 5057-4, which was released back right before the shutdown and became effective during the shutdown. Normally we would have, updated you guys on this before the SOP became effective, but we're gonna update you now. So, and I'm gonna just go over today. I'm gonna go over some of the highlights, some of the highlight policy changes. When we send the deck out after the call, it's going to include kind of a chapter by chapter synopsis of all the different changes. So there'll be more detail in that, but I don't want to sit on here and read slides to you guys. So we'll just go over the highlights. The first kind of highlight that you'll see throughout the SOP is to codify some procedural changes that were put into place last fiscal year in the spring, and that was to centralize intake for 7A servicing and liquidation actions at the commercial loan servicing centers and in Herndon. So we centralized all of the loan servicing activities at both Little Rock and Fresno. They're operating as one commercial loan servicing center, so they're still handling all loans in dispersed regular current status, but you don't have to worry. For those lenders that are operating nationally, you don't have to worry about sending certain actions to Little Rock or Fresno, depending on where your borrower is located. You'll send them all to one inbox. In a similar vein, 7A loans and liquidation that are handled by CLCS, you can send those in to a single point of contact. And there is a change in what loans the commercial loan servicing centers are handling. They're no longer handling liquidation or purchase packages for 7A small loans. They're still handling the 7A Express, Export Express, Patriot Express, Community Advantage, and any of the pilot programs. And that would be for any liquidation or litigation actions that require our approval or notification, as well as submission of any of the pre or post-purchase UPP packages, and as well as the CPC expense tabs and the wrap-up reports. The commercial loan servicing center also handles all CAVR, all requests related to CAVR's referrals of borrowers on defaulted 7A, 504, and PPP loans. And Herndon is handling 7A small. That's the big change here, is that now Herndon is handling the purchase activity for 7A small loans, as well as kind of the programs they used to work on as well, the standard 7A, PLP, cap lines, the working capital program, those, the larger loans. And they're also handling all secondary market purchases. So even, I talked on the slide before about the loan programs that the CLCS is handling the purchase for, or the purchase reviews of, but the secondary market purchase is centralized in Herndon, and they're also handling all the semi-annual reporting for all purchase 7A loans. And we feel that these changes it provides you guys with a single point of entry for your requests, and hopefully provides a better consistency in our responses and our response times. And it allows us to kind of load balance inside and shift the work around a little bit easier. So hopefully you're finding that change is going good for you guys. So now we'll get into some of the policy changes. We did clarify on when the SBA guarantee fee is due, the ongoing fee. So that's due from the time the loan is dispersed until the guarantee is extinguished. And that includes the guarantee being extinguished through either the loan being reported as paid in full, or the lender voluntarily terminating the guarantee, or when SBA purchases the guarantee. So that ongoing guarantee fee is going to be due for the whole life of the loan from SBA's perspective. We also made some changes to align with SOP 5010-8. The first change, this is a big one, is that all new obligors that are coming onto the loan and servicing and liquidation must comply with the citizenship requirements from 5010-8. That includes any substitutions or assumptions. And if there are any legal permanent residents that are being added, they have to first go through the USCIS verification process at the SLPC before you send in the request to to the servicing center. And then we've also reverted back for some of the actions that are reverted back to 5010-8 for actions for which SOP to apply to look to for policy guidance when performing loan increases and some other actions. That'll all be kind of outlined in the deck that we send out. Another change that we codified in the SOP was released in a procedural notice last spring, and that was to revert back to the long-standing historical practice of looking at SOP 5010 in effect at the time the loan was approved for determining whether the lender complied with loan making, loan closing, or any pre-disbursement loan activities. And there's no change for what SOP governs for servicing actions. That's SOP 5057 in effect at the time the servicing action was taken. And then finally, the last update, the last slide here is the introduction of the uncollectible status. So we introduced a new loan status towards right around September or October. And this is a new status that will be used after SBA processes your wrap-up report. So after we process a wrap-up report, we'll place the loan into either uncollectible status or charge-off status. If the loan is going to be referred to Treasury, it will go into uncollectible status. And when it's in that status, payments will be applied first to interest after, of course, Treasury takes their fees. And that was done primarily to align with how Treasury applies payments and how they handle their interest accrual and application of payments. So we're gonna be aligned with Treasury. We had some mismatch balances between the balances in our systems and Treasury systems. So we're in alignment here, and this should reduce some of the friction from having those mismatch balances. We're still going to be using charge-off status. So any loan that is not eligible for Treasury collection at the time the wrap-up is processed will still go into charge-off status. So hopefully not a huge change on your side, but I know you guys will see the status in ETRAN and different reports you receive. So just wanted to let you guys know where that came from, why it was implemented, and the impact of that status. I also wanted to let everybody know that along with the SOP update, we did release an updated version of the unilateral matrix, which is posted on SBA.gov, and as well as updated versions of the UPP. And we actually just released a updated version of the UPP today. It was posted to the website a couple hours ago. So please go to the website and download the updated tabs before you send any more purchase requests to the centers. And so that's all I have for 5057. I'm going to hand it back to Dan.
All right, thanks, Marty.
Sure.
All right, so want to do we're going to quickly cover some of the recent notices. So on the next slide, there's been 4 notices issued since the end of the fiscal year, right around the fiscal year start of fiscal 26. So I guess in descending order, the SBSS notice was issued on Friday, and it's going to be the main topic I'm covering today. We have the procedural notice on citizenship. Give a little bit of an update on that since we didn't get to cover it on the last in the October 7A call, or in a previous 7A call, I should say. At the end of fiscal 25, we did issue a policy notice outlining some updates for both 7A and 504. So go over a little bit of that. And then, as Thomas mentioned, we've been having some great interest in the MARC program. So please check out the program guide. So the program's off to a really strong start. And that's something we're going to cover next month during the inaugural Lender Connect call, which is really focused on product and loan structuring, probably more of an underwriting component, but also trying to share best practices from industry. So on the next slide here, we'll start getting into the notices. So this was the procedural notice that was set at the end of the fiscal year. There were a couple things in here that I think are just of note I want to bring out for everybody. We did make an update to new business, removing the same geographical area component. I think that's important. Thomas mentioned the the critical industries, manufacturing, food supply chain, critical minerals, that you think about a client in one of these spaces, they might be expanding from, say, your manufacturer on the East Coast and you're putting up a distribution center in the Midwest. That makes a lot of sense. It's really part of an expansion of that business. Whereas, geographic market doesn't always apply, and we wanted to give lenders flexibility there. The second update, what we call the 90-day rule for EWCP and WCP. This was an important update because originally with the export working capital program and then with the working capital pilot, we really introduced this idea of a time-based fee. So you're paying an incremental guarantee fee for each year of lines in use. It's really meant to stand alone, and there were some rare circumstances where you'd have EWCP or WCP paired with a 7A loan, and then the 90-day aggregation rule ended up adding the amount of the line of credit in with the term loan, and then we had to kind of back that out behind the scenes. So really, we just separated those into their own distinct categories, and I think this really gives lenders a lot more flexibility with how they structure, loan packages and capital for their customers, while still recognizing the importance of that low annual guarantee fee when structuring these larger monitored self-liquidating lines. So that's actually one of the best changes. And just to point out that improvement came as a direct result of feedback we received from our lenders, those who attend the 7A and 504 Connect calls, but also that we speak to at conferences. So when you're finding something that's not working, letting us know the real world implications of that really gives us a foundation for making change. So I just want to thank everybody who brought that to our attention. We were able to quickly resolve that, and proud to have that update out. The next slide here, it's more of a clarification just regarding same institution debt within the MARC program. So there are some situations where it makes sense to refinance it, especially if you're seeing a substantial increase in the facility. But you do have to follow the same rules for same institution debt, including submitting that. So on collateral valuation, pretty straightforward, on that. The updates really focus more on, again, we want to be flexible, especially in the ESOP space. That is such a regulated area that we want to make sure we're adhering to the ERISA specifications. So again, this is a longer notice, but wanted to go over some of the highlights. We'll transition into citizenship now. So this was published back in December when effective January 1. Over the last year, there was kind of a change where we're capturing all the information on the owners. The requirement was set at 100% ownership for U.S. citizens. One of the items of feedback we got was to create this 5% allowance that gave some flexibility. It positioned us in a way that we could support foreign investment. So this created a 5% allowance in aggregate, so single per individual or group, so long as they weren't in the ineligible person category, the category of ineligible persons. So on the next slide, we document that category falls in 5 general categories: undocumented aliens in the U.S. illegally. We have asylum seekers under DACA, conditional LPRs are exempt from that. We have business concerns that were organized and created overseas. We have an individual who has citizenship or maintains a primary residence in the People's Republic of China or Hong Kong, and then an individual business concern on OFAC. So obviously OFAC, the Office of Foreign Asset Control, that's financial sanctions. So anybody on that list would be ineligible. But the hope here was to create a little bit of flexibility. We have received a number of good questions. We are exploring and looking into. So we're trying to get back to people on case-by-case situations. Obviously, if you are coming across a specific transaction and you want some guidance on that, please feel free to reach out to the 7A delegated loan apps inbox or 7A questions. It'll all get you to the right place. We want to try to offer guidance where possible. Some of the situations tend to be hypothetical, so we are really trying to focus on transit files and transactions that are in play. So on this next slide here just goes over some of the scenarios for making a determination on the 5% ownership allowance. again, not going through all of these one by one, but I think this just helps walk you through the various categories. The important part here is the aggregation, that it is across all individuals who are not U.S. citizens or permanent LPRs. All right, so went through those pretty quickly. Now on to the SBSS score update. So on the next slide, so this was kind of a two-pronged announcement. First, we had an email that went out from Thomas Kimsey letting everybody know this was coming. We wanted, one of the goals of this change was to give everybody as much time as possible to be aware of the change. The notice was published last week. So the SBSS sunset, discontinues the use of the FICO Small Business Scoring Service Score, or SBSS. And as Thomas mentioned, feedback I'd say has been quite positive on this, that a lot of lenders were pulling this in addition to their normal practices. And, as part of refocusing our program on time-tested underwriting standards, I think now is a good time to sunset SBSS. So this will go into effect on all loans on or after March 1st. So if your loan is approved in E-Tran by 11:59 p.m. Eastern on February 28th, then you can still use the the SBSS score in the 7A small underwriting. So on or after March 1st, however, you have to comply with the rules in the notice. So you do have the rest of January and through February to begin to transition your process. And now let's take a look at what the process is. We will take some questions from the audience as we go. So,
hey Dan, I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's Diana. Hi, folks.
Hello, Diana.
Can we go back to the other slide? I just want to reiterate something, and it's not just best practices of a lender, which of course they all are charged with knowing how to underwrite loans in general, but the statutory requirements are that the business be able to support the repayment of the obligation from the cash flow of the eligible small business concern / operating company. So this is a statutory primary that usurps reg in any policy that is the case. And the only way I know to do debt service coverage is to do a debt service coverage analysis. So I just want to make sure that they understand it's not just these issues, but it is a return to the statutory requirement for the underwriting of cash flow.
Absolutely. That is an excellent addition and a point that we will continue to drive home on this one, because it is, I think it is, to Diana, to your point, it's, the repayment ability is paramount here. And I think on the next slide, Ross, we got, this change really breaks the 7A small underwriting into two distinct tracks, credit history and repayment ability. So this is not, back one slide, this is not a do what you do idea. We do allow for lenders to continue using their models. Now, models are varied depending on the institution, depending on the role of that model. It could be something similar to an SBSS that would be used to develop a score to move forward, but a lot of lenders also use it just in assessing their own internal underwriting criteria, how it compares to the rest of their portfolio. So I think the most important thing to take from this is that there are two tracks that have to be satisfied: credit history and repayment ability. Repayment ability, again, focuses on debt service coverage. That's the primary component. You cannot satisfy repayment ability with a general score. You have to make that calculation that is critical to underwriting these 7A small transactions. So on the next slide, we get into, again, small dollar underwriting. Again, we want to be flexible. We want to make sure we're allowing the lenders to carry out their process, but we still need that focus on the underwriting component. So the use of a scoring model internally can satisfy only the credit history component. If the model, software, app, whatever term you want to use for it, begins to do more of a financial analysis, then you can certainly incorporate that into the rest of your underwriting as you look to satisfy the requirements of 7A small. So again, we have two tracks: credit history and repayment ability. So this bottom bullet point is important, that you can only use a scoring model that is permitted by your federal regulator. That includes, that would be SBA for anybody with an SBLC license, and in line with your similar size non-government guaranteed loans. So on the next slide, now this is more the repayment ability component. And one of the goals as we were starting to evaluate how best to sunset SBSS was what we refer to as more of a truncated underwriting. You could say it's kind of back of the napkin, if you will, but the idea is to have a focus on debt service coverage. We also have introduced a requirement on 2 months of bank activity or bank statements. And I think that's important for a few reasons. One, as an underwriter, it gives you insight into that company's day-to-day cash flow. That includes, monitoring for merchant cash advances. Those can be incredibly problematic for underwriting borrowers. And then we have cash flow projections. So if the historical debt service, which would be using the last year-end statement, financial statement, doesn't meet the debt service coverage of 1.0 to 1, you can incorporate projections. Obviously, if you're acquiring a new production line or adding something that's going to have a positive impact on the business's financial performance, you can find a way to incorporate that. And we do give the ability for projections, but underwriting that last fiscal year end period is critical. On the next slide, we are at, so again, this is in 5010, debt service coverage is kind of explained as operating cash flow divided by debt service, OCF divided by DS, kind of repositioning that as debt service coverage. This is the same formula. So, and lenders are afforded the same adjustments, additions, subtractions to operating cash flow as allowed in 5010. So again, the 7A small, in place of the SBSS score will hinge on debt service coverage. You can still use any sort of scoring model or internal kind of process for that to incorporate credit history, but it cannot take the place of this. And that is one of the major changes. We did get a couple questions that I have, and I appreciate everybody who reached out over the last day and into the weekend. I think the big question, obviously we want to make sure we're defining the period. The 1.0 to 1, sorry, 1.10 to 1. You also have to be mindful of the trends through the interim period. So I think from an underwriting perspective, from a process perspective, taking a look at the last fiscal year end makes a lot of sense. I think that's a lot of times when you're really analyzing cash flow, it's where you start. As you get into the year, look at a calendar year end. So you're into July and August. So you have 6 months of interims available. Obviously, being mindful of what's happened to the company during the interim period is incredibly important. You can't kind of on one hand say, hey, we had great cash flow in 2025, but here we are in July of 26, and the trends are going in all the wrong way. Let's move forward with the loan. Don't worry about it. I think as a lender, as an underwriter, that's your job, that's your responsibility, that's prudent underwriting, and that's what you have to follow. So again, the idea with the 7A small underwriting was to kind of give it a truncated list. We're requiring lenders to obtain the financial statements necessary to make the calculation. You got to check the credit history of the applicant. You got to calculate your debt service, show that the company has the ability to repay the loan, and you got to get the information necessary to make that determination. But we really wanted it to be focused on something that was a little, more lean and befitting of small dollar underwriting. So again, the feedback that we've received generally has been positive. That and I think one of the largest points was that the lenders were already performing their underwriting, going through their process, and then pulling the SBSS score just to make sure. So it was this kind of additive second step that didn't have a lot of value in many situations. So again, happy to take any additional questions. I guess Bob and Ross and Randy as we draw to the end. Got a couple housekeeping things. We'll take some questions here. This new format on 7A and 504 Connect is a shorter call. So for those you missing the days of 2-hour webinars, we are trying to truncate this down. So moving on to before we open up questions, so we got some Lender Connect calls and conferences. As Thomas mentioned, we do look forward to meeting with everybody as we get on the road here in 2026. The next slide, we have our Connect call schedule. So the Lender Connect call is a new call. So the inaugural one will be on February 11th. And again, this one will be focused on transaction structure, credit underwriting, So think of it as SBA lending for those who aren't exclusive to the SBA industry. So, but we all, of course, welcome you to be on there. We will, on the next call, we will be recapping some of the mark observations now that the program has been in place for a couple months. We are also closing in on an update to the working capital pilot. So that'll be something we cover during the February call. And also going to be discussing how the working capital pilot, mark, and other credit line products can support the surety bond program at SBA. So that was something, when I was on the bank side, I frankly didn't know a whole lot about SBA's surety program. And I think there's a lot of great opportunities there for relationship managers, lenders, and every other SBA lending specialist to find ways to take care of their customers. Then we have, of course, the 7A and 504 Connect that are the first and last month of each quarter, respectively. So we now have a national broadcast every month that I think will allow us the opportunity to bring news on changes, engage with you in a more concise but more frequent manner. And as Thomas mentioned, we have some conference attendance as we get into the spring here on the next slide. And the Southeast Lenders Conference, I think, is the first in Savannah. We got the MALC in San Antonio this year, mid-April. So we're looking forward to that. Then we get into NAGCO. I guess there's a typo. We have NAGL in Orlando, followed by NAGCO in Arlington, Virginia. So that's where we'll be at through the spring. And, with that, maybe go to the final slide, take some questions from the audience. I'll open it up to 718. They can either address them directly based on what's come in or ask me.
Yeah, Dan, there's one here about the 7A small loans. Does the new policy notice require all lenders to obtain 2 bank statements from operating companies and analyze them? Yes,
it does. So that can be bank statements. It can be, if you're using a service provider that gives you kind of insight into a 60-day run on the bank account, just to give you, something like a plaid. Yeah, that is required. That is allowed, and I shouldn't say allowed. That is required under the program. We want to understand, the company's deposit activity. The bank should analyze that, or must analyze that as part of their underwriting.
Question, you've answered it a little bit already, but just to clarify for everybody, do we need to do a complete full credit analysis like a standard 7A, or does the analysis of cash flow, repayment ability, and debt service coverage suffice?
The debt service is the primary piece. You still have to, let me pull up my written version of the notice. I think that the exact text from the underwriting section found on page 2 of the notice is, in addition to summarizing the business ownership, loan request, you must get the defined credit elsewhere, and then you get into your reasonable assurance repayment. So you still have to analyze the transaction, and go through your general underwriting. I don't think it's as easy as just saying, they were 1.17 to 1, so we're good to move. I think, an understanding of the company and its financial performance is certainly part of it, but that is the hurdle to clear.
There is kind of a housekeeping question, is how do we register for these sessions? The answer to that question is there's email links to these calls that you can be a part of when we send out notices. But as far as the calls are concerned, the general links that we send out in those emails, you just include those on your calendar invites when they come out. And we usually, I don't think we did in this case, Dan, today, and include a slide with those links. Well, I think, Ross, you want to go back and on that slide, do we have
can you just put one in the chat so that they can see it, or the link to it?
Yeah.
Those absolutely are hyperlinks on that slide.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
there we
for
go.
the call schedule. So,
okay.
And we will distribute the deck, as Ross mentioned at the top. We will have the recording put up. We're also going to cut this down into its composite sections, so that it's a little more digestible for everybody.
Dan, I have a comment or a question, answer for a comment that's in here, and that's about the new 1919. So one of the things I want to make sure everybody understands is that we are moving to an electronic platform only. And every time we stitch a little change in the rule, we're not going to be updating 1919s and 1244s anymore. It's going to be an electronic capture of data. So the process is very cumbersome, as you might know or might not, and it has to go through layers. And every time we change it, the form has to be modified to be 508 compliant, etc. So the new experience we're building in the platform is going to be an electronic submission. There won't be a form for 1919. We will collect the same data and the lenders will be inputting that data, but we aren't going to provide a specific form that we need to update every time that there's a modernization, especially in a period like this where we're doing a lot of changes to the program.
So we'll grab that. All right. Any other questions in there, Randy?
There are quite a few, but
Okay.
I think we've addressed
Any other
a lot
good
of
ones?
them.
I mean, we got a little bit of time here.
Yeah, guys, feel free to jump in if you see any. Ross and
Looks like somebody's having trouble with Cavers. If you can send that in to somebody specifically, I'm not sure who's not responding, if it's an SBA response or not. But please provide us with some more detail and we'll look at that separately. Speaking of questions and submitting them to SBA, I think, Dan, you can brag a little bit about the level and the backlog in our 7A questions and 7A delegated boxes these days. I think
Yes.
We're seeing really good low numbers in there, which means they're turning them or you're getting your answers without having to go to that resource.
Yes. Yeah, we're, Diana, as mentioned, we're the 7A policy team, and some colleagues from the Office of Manufacturing and Trade are now also supporting 7A questions and delegated loan app inbox. So our goal is to turn those around quickly. So we do have that cleared. As I looked this morning, we were, I think, pretty caught up through really through Monday. So we're looking, I guess we're working on today's submissions and we've received probably about 30 questions already today. So we're working to respond on those quickly and do appreciate the scenarios and the opportunity to weigh in as you work on transactions on the front end. So more to come on that as we continue to update and improve our process. So we will continue to address any of the questions that were sent in, and I think we've answered a fair amount of those already. So with that, I just really want to thank everybody for taking time out of their day. Obviously, we couldn't be doing this without you. So please feel free to continue sending your questions in, and we'll look forward to seeing you during the SBA Lender Connect call in February. Thank you.
Thanks everybody for your attendance. Like Dan said, we're going to send out a notification if this will be on the Training on Demand website with the deck. So with that concludes the call for today. Thank you.